everybody, and welcome back to Astrology and Beyond. I am Tatiana, also broadcasting for ANN, the Archetypal News Network. And as I promised, I said I would give you a breakdown of the upcoming eclipse, lunar eclipse, total lunar eclipse, the red blood moon eclipse in Pisces at 15 degrees and 32 minutes of Pisces. So here we have it. This is going to be a marker point like all eclipses are. Eclipses are passages, evolutionary looping points where we learn lessons, shed beliefs, shed old identities, shed things so we can move forward. Now, this is a total lunar eclipse. And when we have lunar eclipses, we're talking about a supercharged full moon where themes get so revealed. And because it is in Pisces, we might have a lot of emotions coming to the fore, maybe unresolved collective currents that a lot of us will be feeling in different areas of life and in different ways. And the invitation through this eclipse portals is to go within so we can gain awareness of what it is being asked of us evolutionarily. This is why astrology is so helpful, because it can help us like zero in to what area and what specific lessons we are moving through, so that the next levels of our evolution keep us moving forward with much more ease and grace. And at this time, and like I said in the previous video, that I highly recommend you watch, because if you haven't watched it, because the eclipse will be happening within the context of all those other transits happening, the retrogrades of Uranus and Saturn, and all this energy of reviewing. It's almost like going back for one last time to review all those heavy, big lessons. And we might be tired of like, what else? What more? Like the world's a chaos and life has been difficult these few years. Like, what else can we do? So this is where we go, ooh, hold your horses. When we move with the waters, the Piscean waters of the trust, what we're leaving behind, everything that is detaching or dying or getting dissolved again, like a watercolor, or like when you're washing your brushes and all those colors get washed and washed until the water is completely clear. This is what's happening. We have been washing those brushes for a little bit, and there's the last little bits of paint. And now it's washing and washing until these waters are clear. Because if we're still carrying these deep karmic waters of past behaviors, we can't really move into the new phase that is being pushed out of us with Saturn and Neptune moving at the first degree of Aries again in 2026, and having Uranus and Pluto, like the big context happening, where is this big collective shift. This big collective shift can only happen when we as individuals take the responsibility for our little personal individual shift. And we, as we all shift, the collective shifts. So it's not waiting that the collective shifts to do something about it. Otherwise, we're just hit, by the massive waves of you gotta change. So this is why we're gonna talk about the specifics of this eclipse by looking at the eclipse chart. And as you can see here, we have this full moon eclipse at we have it at 15 degrees. Sorry, it's 22 degrees. I said 32 earlier. It was 15 degrees, 22 degrees, 15 degrees, 22 minutes of Pisces. So if you have any points, planets, angles particularly personal planets, on or around 15 degrees of anything, you will be feeling something very strong about this eclipse. Obviously, if you have it in Pisces or Virgo or Sagittarius or Gemini, this eclipse might be pointing to a very deep karmic push to really change and shift something related to the planet in question that you may have at 15 on or around 15 degrees of the mutable signs. And this always of being, always of doing things, and this is gonna shift us. So, me, I have Mercury, my natal Mercury at 15 of Virgo. So I have been contemplating this deeply about what communicating from true, authentic voice means, communicating also from a much deeper place of soul and spirit, and not so much from the worry of the mind. Uh, I've been contemplating this myself because it's like, okay, this is very interesting. I've been a lot talking about the Gene Key 59, the honesty and the intimacy and the dishonesty that can happen in our world because of the fear of being truly seen and vulnerable. And this is very deep. It's not just me, it's the world. And also the obsessions, right? This is, I'm talking about a little bit myself because I'm talking about Virgo, but why this is important, I mean, is because me as a Virgo, I have been feeling this tension quite a bit between the trust in what needs to dissolve, so that the new things, what is brought to be uh, um, bringing literally heaven on earth in a grounded way, needs to be grounded, but with that clean water. We cannot keep grounding the old patterns, the old beliefs, and the old way of doing things. Otherwise, that keeps repeating and the patterns keep repeating. What we need to do is ground the new spirituality, the new way of being from a place of total authenticity towards self, total self love. So, what's going to happen in this eclipse in general is a great tension between self and others, the love of ourselves and our unique expression, and the way we manage that within the collective and the collective selves, all the authentic selves that are wanting to emerge at this time, and how, with our own unique being, we're finally going to step up to become that true authentic self, to be woven in this fabric of a collective that knows exactly what we're meant to be doing, because our soul knows exactly what it came here for. It knows exactly its blueprint. It knows its shadows and its shortcomings. So that deep trust is going to be pushed and pushed out of us more and more. So if you've been doing a lot of deep healing work, inner work throughout the past years, this could be a very healing, fulfilling time where finally something emerges out of releasing that last little bit of paint in the brush. And the waters might feel clearer, even though the release, that final release, seems like a test, like a difficult test to pass. But once it's passed, it's as though everything could open up. Conversely, if you have been avoiding seeing yourself, avoiding seeing the lessons, and trying to bypass or escape or blame others for your situation, blame outside yourself, blame the world, blame the politics, blame the politicians, blame your country, blame your spouses, blame, it's all them. This could feel like a very difficult time where that's no longer supported. We are no longer victims of circumstance, and that is what's going to happen. So this, we still have a chance. That's the thing with these eclipses. It's like everything that happens to us happens for us. And because the eclipse is a north node eclipse in Pisces, what it means is that whatever is being washed away, and I think this is something that Pam Gregory said. I was watching her and I found that to be very beautiful, that Pam Gregory is a phenomenal astrologer from the UK. In case you don't know her, she's absolutely amazing. Recommend her videos and everything because she's amazing. You know, also world mentor in astrology, I would say that I'm very grateful for her existence. And she said something beautiful about it. She said that everything that's being released uh, in this North Node eclipse, it's also what's pushing us to our best existence. So it's like grieving something, but it's the only way to move towards something better is to really truly grieve something because it's Pisces. So we have to close these cycles. Yes or yes. Now the difficulties, why this eclipse might feel like tense or difficult with respect to ourselves and our relationships and where we have not put clear boundaries to to protect our energy field from being completely sucked into everybody's vortices, or if we've been completely too isolated and too cautious about connecting to anyone. You see, this is where we have to find the porousness of the boundary and the clarity of the boundary to know where our own alignment stands with respect to the whole. Now, the difficulty, and I see where it comes, is because Venus here at 15 degrees of Leo will be in conjunct this eclipse. And Venus is all about the heart. And in Leo, it's about what we truly value that nurtures our self expression, which is Leo. It's the self expression. And in that inconjunct, it seems as though the expression of our unique blueprint it's at odds with the collective changes, and the only way to have that expression fully present is also by releasing the ego attachments or the attachments to things needing to be our way in an egotistical sense. So basically, it's aligning with the soul's desire or the soul's will. It's what aligns us with the truth of what the soul most deeply wants to express in this lifetime. And for that, we need to step outside the ego mind that thinks this is what I am, this is what I want, this is in a little bit of a defiant, selfish manner, as opposed to a truly authentic, this is who I am. You see, there's a difference between the resistance and the truth that says, I will follow my heart because my heart gets excited with this. If something is not in alignment, your heart will know it. And it's the capacity to articulate authentically how these frequencies, how these alignments show up. And this is where it's difficult or tricky because the ego usually acts out of fear. That's why defiance is from fear, whereas alignment feels love. It's more like, what are we attracted to truly? And when we're doing things, are we doing them with our heart and because we're excited and because we love it? Or are we doing things because we have to, because we're caught in those layers of overextending ourselves for others? And this is where we see also Jupiter in Cancer in the square to Mars in Libra. It's where are we overextending ourselves, either overgiving or overdoing for others without taking care of ourselves. Cancer, the nurturing home, what makes us feel safe, and also what we want to protect. Where do we feel we are at peace in an inner sanctuary? And where are all other forces pulling us to people please and not be assertive enough in what's important to us? So at this time there could be these discomforts with what's mine, what's yours, what I truly believe in, what you believe in, where the line is. There might be completely blurred lines. We might be pushed again into some kind of martyrdom or trying to save the whole world without giving ourselves the love we need first, putting on our own oxygen mask first. So at this time, we might see that, how that plays out. And why? Because during the full moons, and this is an eclipse full moon, What happens is that the energy of the moon, or the placement where the Pisces energy is, kind of, it's like the switch turns off and we don't see it. And because we don't see it, the darkest themes of this, the shadows of Pisces, might come up, which is sacrifice, martyrdom, victimhood, like I will die for to save the world, and it's like we are so past that, passe. It's like when I take my care of myself, my own individual self, my energy, I have clear boundaries and I have self-love and deep compassion for myself, only then can I have compassion for others. Only then can I see them and love them and be of service to something higher. So you see, the times of martyrdom and futile sacrifice are over. This is over. So those behaviors are leaving our collective consciousness. We are entering into the God self, which is we are the oneness. We are the power of the source energy. And we are entering into understanding that fully, that we are 100% responsible for all of our creations. And my creation also is part of the collective creation. So whatever I create will be within the collective. So if I want to see something in the collective, well, I better do something about it. How am I contributing to the collective? By contributing to myself, my journey, and the love that pours out of me. This is the difference between the control mechanisms, the micromanagement, the blaming of others, the controlling of others, and out of fear, and the actual connection to self, to the source that knows exactly what it needs, exactly what it wants, when it wants it, through the lens of love. Neil Donald Walsh, in the book Conversations with God, with it's a beautiful channeling that he does. It's a very simple book with very simple human questions. But there is the one essence of this whole book that he says the whole time is, anytime you were faced with any choice, the question is, what would love do in this situation? And this is what we're asked to do. This is exactly what this whole shenanigans of Saturn having moved through Pisces for the past 3 years and coming back at the 29th degree to get that lesson finally, like it's saying, what would love do at this moment? And it's love for self, love for other, love for the collective, love for the whole. But the love for self is also very important. If we don't have any boundaries, then we enter the martyrdom. So these are the tight aspects or difficult aspects. Also, we have Lilith in conjunct to Neptune. So it's also about what have been actual illusions. We're also learning to see what have been illusions in our reality, what is truly real, and what is just some kind of spiritual illusion or spiritual bypass, or things that are not really useful to the planet. Why? Because Virgo here on the opposite side of the eclipse, which is the sun, uh, the whatever area of life just takes more force. So Virgo is trying to show how the energy of what's dissolving, what's up there, can have a concrete expression here. How? By being practical. This is the Virgo word. Practical, methodical, grounded, analytical, seeing this works, this doesn't work. Discerning, highly discerning. This is good, this is not good. This will be efficient, this is not efficient. And with this, I don't mean I don't mean to say in a, like, learning to discriminate doesn't mean that we are caught in in the good and bad, right or wrong. It's not about moral discernment. It's about practical discernment. When something is efficient, it is, and when it isn't, it just isn't. It's very neutral. It's very objective. So bring back the objectivity into your life. And this helps us see, well, what are the things that we can actually practically ground? What are the practices? What are the things that are actually making our life move in a direction that it's better, by leaving behind any behaviors, patterns, or karmic entanglements that are no longer serving that. So during this time, what the Virgo is asking is to get also practical, but not obsessed with it's only what we see. It's almost like that balance. When we have these oppositions, we want to find a balance between the trust in the invisible and the practicality and what's real with what's not real, what's fantasy from what is it's an actual tangible reality, and even what is a spiritual reality or a spiritual truth. This is what Saturn has been asking of us during its passage through Pisces. What is spiritually true and what is a full of what is BS? Because there could be so much psychosis in the world where people can be saying anything and everything, but is it even useful? So this is where we have to ask ourselves those deep questions. What is my own spiritual path telling me about myself and my role in the world to create a better world? The end is very simple. So if I'm not creating a better world and I'm doing kumbaya over there, then that's not serving anybody, right? This is kind of part of that mastery of Saturn. So yeah, essentially this is what the eclipse it's saying. So let's see if I forgot anything else. Well, we do have the Sun and Mercury also in Virgo that are conjunct in this during this eclipse. And this is exactly having more mental clarity and discernment, and see how we can serve better, like what I just said, with more clarity. And the mind, Mercury, is going to have more ideas of how to organize that and how to make a plan for that to be actually possible. Um, uh, so we also have Chiron here in Aries, like I said, that it's opposing Lilith, and I want to have a little mention of that again because this has been an ongoing theme for the time that um, Chiron has been transiting Aries. Um, it's like an ongoing theme, but it's almost the end of this thematic. So it's healing the wounds of inequality, of polarity, of you versus me, by creating more authentic relationship to oneself and others. So that's how we heal that wound, because in Aries, Chiron wants to say, who am I and what do I want to be and do in this world, to have courage to do. And sometimes we have been silenced. We just don't say it. So we just don't even do it. We don't even dare go for what we really know we can do because of all these wounding. Now, the question here is, how can we heal that through raw, authentic connection to our power to initiate something? And that is the Aries energy. Is like, if I only had one more, like a few more days to live on this planet, or if I was told that I don't have much time, what would I really want to do? Have I spent my whole life pleasing others, doing things that are not in my heart? Or would I go and say, okay, what are the things that I would love to do? And that's how we know. That's how we know the direction we're meant to take with courage. So this is where we heal that wound of not having had the courage. So overall, like this eclipse is dissolving the old relational illusions. Uh, it will push truth and intimacy. It will test the balance between your own independence and togetherness. It will call for practical spiritual service, and this is a call for a karmic healing so that the collective is karmic, is all of us. It's not just one person, so that the whole collective can birth a true new reality based on these authentic truths. So that essentially is the eclipse. This is what we're going to be seeing. And now, how it will show up for you, this is the next layer I want to talk about. But first, before I say that, I gotta mention something for those who watched my previous video. I said something, I was telling a story about me realizing certain things about my past and my childhood and my upbringing. And I told a little story about having cut my mom's Barbie's hair and collectible Barbie, and she was so mad that she grounded me. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because I didn't mention that today, my mom, my dad, they're the most amazing humans, and I just love them so much. And they have evolved themselves towards ways that are amazingly supportive, and it's a beautiful relationship. So, the fact that certain aspects of self have still stayed in the childhood wound, which is probably true for all of us, just doesn't mean that our parents are and the relationships we have today are not beautiful. But certain aspects for sure have still stayed in the stages of the little child that's wounded. So this is why the call is to take all of that collective child energy of the wounded child and move past. Grow up into our most divine, aligned, powerful, strong selves. And that's a call for everyone. No one is spared here. Now, of course, if you are, like I said, have anything on or around the 15th degree, especially of the mutable signs, these lessons might come with a lot of discomfort unless you have been doing a very conscious work leading up to the eclipse where you can see and recognize what those themes are. So we're going to go house by house to see what you have been when you're being asked to release through this Piscean karmic ending, so that whatever is in your best interest will emerge through that same trust in a divine force. So you see, it's a double thing. So if the eclipse falls in your first house, so I'm going to stop my share. If the eclipse falls in your first house, which means you are a Pisces rising, and I'm gonna go kind of whole sign house because it might be in two houses. So you might want to listen to the other two houses in case you feel more resonant, depending on what system you use. But let's say for whole sign house system, if the eclipse is in your first house, that means you're a Pisces rising. There's like an identity reset, and you're shedding an old self-image and reclaiming some sort of spiritual authenticity that is really related to a more connected self. Uh, and then an identity that what you thought you were is really having to go out the window now. Through this last passage of Saturn into Pisces, the question of Saturn is, have you gained a new sense of self? Is your identity determined by you or by others? Who determines your path? Do you determine your path, or is your path determined by other people? So Saturn asks the question, have you come into the maturity to know that your path is your path and only you can walk it? So Pisces people, Pisces rising, that's that. If the eclipse falls in the second house, which means you're an Aquarius rising, this falls on the house of money, values, possessions. So something over there is dissolving. So you might feel that there's a loss, that you're losing something that you once felt it was so valuable, that you were attached to. Things, possessions, you might actually lose at this time certain things to realize that the true value of things come with alignment with yourself. So abundance, true abundance comes not when you're trying to work for money or do things for money, but when you do things that are aligned with your essence, that the resources you are get them because you truly believe in the value of what you're doing and what you're providing for the world. Otherwise, it could feel like a loss. So everything that is not authentically aligned when it comes to money and values and how you get your resources will probably go, so that you align yourself with something that's more fulfilling, nurturing, and that you really value yourself and what you're doing in the world. If the eclipse falls on your third house, which means that you are a Capricorn rising, uh, there could be changes in the way you communicate, in your mind, your beliefs around how you think, um, how you learn. There could be healing or certain aspects of your family, if you have siblings that have the potential to completely heal. So certain relationships towards your siblings, and maybe in early childhood when you had siblings, or even at school when you might have thought that you were not intelligent enough, that everybody else knew better than you. So Saturn here, through the Pisces retrograde, is asking, are you able to focus your mind in a way that you believe in your thinking? Or are you still attached to everybody's else's uh, speech or everybody's else's ways of communicating? When I had Saturn transit in my third house, I remember that's when I did a lot of nonviolent communication. I was learning literally to communicate clearly. So Saturn here asks, can you communicate clearly your truth? Can you communicate clearly what you need? Can you communicate clearly? Are you your own authority of your words? That's also part of that. It's like we are master, a slave of our words and master of our silence. So are our words something that provide truth, clarity, and they do something positive in the world? Or are we still slave of the wordiness of the of maybe gossip, or all of that kind of comes into question when Saturn comes to the third house? And in this eclipse, we are releasing anything along those topics that have to do with how we speak, how we communicate, and if we communicate through integrity, if our words are filled with integrity and honesty, or if our words are full of BS, if what we have to say is hollow and shallow. This is again where, used car salesman, and no offense, I'm not saying this to offend anybody, but it's a common saying. If it's not authentic and true, we're not here to sell anything. We're here to communicate clearly. That's part of that. So let's see if you can be open to a more intuitive way of being. So if Saturn has been transiting your fourth house and this eclipse falls on your fourth house, if you have 15 degrees of Pisces on your fourth house, well, this one's a hard one, because first house, fourth house, seventh house, and 10th house, where are the angles? This is where probably very, very big crises have been happening to you. I mean, not to you, for you. So fourth house, you are a Sagittarius rising. So Sagittarius people, and hello, me. That's me, and oh my God, has it been the ride? This eclipse happens in the house of home, roots, family, ancestral lineage, foundations, and spiritual sanctuary, like your spiritual home. So what gets left behind is whatever isn't in alignment with where you feel at home. So where you are with the families you've built, the homes you've built, and your roots are still shaky and you don't feel grounded, what could happen here is extreme instability. It's extreme difficulty to actually anchor. If the home is not the right place, the home will go. If your emotions are not safely anchored in your own being, then the lesson, that's the Saturn lesson, is have you been able to anchor emotional safety in yourself so that if your home were to go and you were to move anywhere, you would still feel safe in yourself anywhere? Or are you still attached to things that are not healthy, unhealthy family dynamics, or unhealthy home spaces where you don't feel safe because of fear of leaving, and you'd rather stay in a dysfunctional relationship in your family or in your home because of fear? Or have you been able to heal that and say, I can now create my own home and my own family with the tools I have of maturity, which is Saturn, and with my spiritual tools, because it's Pisces. So is my home a true spiritual sanctuary for my soul? And if that's not the case, then the home will probably have a lot of upheaval, home and family. So it could be with your mother, father, with anybody in your family, or you might find things in your lineage that are wanting to be released, especially around the themes of safety, groundedness, and security and stability. Because Saturn wants a long-lasting home with solid roots, the right soil for the right roots. So if the soil has not been the right soil, you will be uprooted to find the next best soil. But we have to be able to release the not good soil if that's your case. So that has been a big learning for me, where I have been observing that in many different ways and taking stock of that, and seeing how this theme is playing out for me. So I'll let you know how this plays out for me and how the eclipse on my Mercury what things in my awareness change or in my reality, and I'll let you know. But I also would like to know you. Tell me, please, in the comments below how you're experiencing this, and if you're able to, before the eclipse happens and whoosh, whacks you, integrate the lesson so there's no whack and you can go, okay, I know what I need to let go of. All right, if the eclipse happens in the fifth house, this means you are a Scorpio rising. And here we're talking about the house of creative expression, romance, children, and uh, it's also the house of the ego self. So this is where we dissolve the ego-driven expression towards a more soul-centered creation. So if you have been doing whatever you create in the world through your ego out of needing approval, um, this will go, because the only thing that really prevails is the authentic expression. Likewise, if with your children there has been some kind of dysfunction with the relationship to your children, this is a time to see or to heal why that could be happening, because your children could be mirrors to you, could be the mirror of what is you're not embracing as true authentic expression. Or conversely, children could be an invitation for you to be more playful, more creative, more yourself, and less serious, and trust a divine plan and not be so stuck up. That could be also an expression of the fifth house. But it all has to be in alignment with your own creative self. It's almost like the invitation to be your happiest child. If you were a child again without having any responsibilities, that's a very Virgo thing. Any responsibilities, what will your games be? This is a real good time to ask yourself where you have been playing in the wrong sandbox. If your creativity, it's not at the right place and it's not providing you a sense of joy, or if it's not providing the world with any service, this is where we need to align with a more authentic expression that will provide a higher service for the world. So, Scorpios, here you have it. Now, for if the eclipse is happening in your sixth house, and again, Saturn has been transiting that sixth house, um, you are a Libra rising. So this is about the house of daily work, health, daily routines, pets, things we take care of every day. And what is being called here is to integrate healing, compassion, and service. Saturn here has been probably saying, are you doing something every day to contribute to more healthy routines, more health in the world for yourself, maybe for others? Maybe it's taking care of something every day, having very specific routines so that you can have a better life. I've always explained a little bit that Virgo, or the sixth house, which is about service, about the daily tasks, about maybe the daily work, is like the cleaning in your kitchen. If you never clean your kitchen, you will have mold and horrible things stagnating in dishes, and your house is gross, and that doesn't allow energy to flow. So the daily work is, have you cleaned your kitchen? You know, when you cook, did you put the dishes away and clean the kitchen, or did you leave them for a week? So this is kind of through the sixth house, is the kitchen, is your health, is your body, is your vessel. It's also what you do every day that helps your life be more efficient. So if you're not incorporating healthy routines in your life, um, whether it is for your own physical health or for the health of your environment, which is again, is like the janitor that cleans all the spaces, so to make sure that when people come into the spaces, everything is clean and beautiful and functional. So how have you been that person? And if you haven't, you still have one more chance with Saturn moving into Pisces to step up to be that person that creates healthy routines, that takes care of self and others, also with compassion and love, which is the Piscean aspect. All right. So if the eclipse falls in your seventh house, and again, this is another difficult placement for eclipses, that means you're a Virgo rising. So, my dear Virgos, this can be kind of complex because, again, it's the axis of self versus others. But in this sense, the eclipse is asking us to release the karmic entanglements and relationships, partnerships that have been maybe draining or not conducive of what the self, which is the Virgo house, which is the first house in this case, wants to really achieve and become. So if partnerships are restrictive or too demanding, too porous, again, this is of the Piscean realm. And this is where we could have had ideals, because remember that we're also dissolving illusions and ideals. So if this was where we had an ideal of partnership or an ideal of a loved one or ideals, this is where we're going to see the illusion of those ideals and what partnership really means. So if partnership has not really meant a solid foundation, then these partnerships will tend to dissolve. They will tend to leave, because Saturn through the seventh house makes us really realize what's a solid partnership that's really rooted in authenticity and love and care, and what relationships are not really that constructive or long lasting. And this could be any kind of contracts we have with others. This could be societies, where we have business partnerships, but also obviously love relationships, or marriage, where we have a contract. And this is where we have to take stock of that. So seventh house, you're going to be faced again with seeing whether or not your partnerships are the right partnerships for what your soul wants to be and create and ground in this world. That's that. So, if the eclipse is happening in the eighth house, this means you are a Leo rising. And for my Leos, this is the house of shared resources. It's the house of intimacy. It's the house of endings. It's the house of death. It's the house of where we detach, or we need to let go, because it's the house of attachments and detachments, precisely. So we here are purging the deep, deep fear around being vulnerable. When Saturn moves through this eighth house, and this is the last call to that, is, have you been able to create true intimacy by being vulnerable, or have you kept your walls so high and so blocked that nothing has connected you to the other deeply? So in this case, also what's leaving is the fear, that rigidity around vulnerability. So if you have faced deep difficulties with having loss, and this can be a very difficult house because a loss is there, but also with loss comes that deep sense of togetherness. Because when people lose what they hold very dear, somehow this is when, and I'm going to say something that might seem really horrible, but this is what just came, is I see somebody maybe losing a child, something that's so, so deeply heartbreaking. But then maybe this couple needed to lose that child so that they could come together in a much deeper bond of love. And that could have been a karmic lesson that this child has given as a gift to those parents that chose this child. And I don't know why I'm choosing this example. I'm just getting this, and I'm getting, please say this. Because this might be you. And I don't mean to say this for that to sound like very gruesome or terrifying, but it's almost as though the lessons that this level of compassion brings are so much deeper, that the level of love that can come from that is so much higher. This is why I'm closing my eyes, because I need to channel this message. The eighth house at this time, it's almost like a call for deep, deep, deep healing of fear and trauma around death and loss. So anything that is being lost or that is dying or moving away, it's calling for such a deep sense of knowing that there's such a bigger beyond. And when we're open to that beyond and to receive, because this is the shared resources, we can also receive so much love from others. So eighth house Pisces, um, which is the Leo rising people, see where you have needed to be deeply more vulnerable. Well, that was a big one. I can't help it. Whew. Let's breathe a little bit before moving on to our ninth house. This is, if you're Cancer rising, you will have the eclipse in your ninth house. This is where we have been. This is the house of beliefs, our the calling for truth, where we travel, where we find the world at large and larger ideals, the higher wisdom. So what's dissolving here is the rigid dogma and the rigid beliefs. And we're embracing more of a mystical truth. So if during this time you have been bombarded while Saturn has moved through this house with all kinds of rigid needs to attach to a religion, a belief, or a way of being, or even your own mind of what things need to be, this is the time to have more openness into seeing what perspectives you can take from your environment in order to make a more informed truth for yourself that is not rooting in everybody else's dogma, but in your own experience of self. And how, if conversely you have been extremely attached to your dogma, and this is the only way and the only belief, this might be like a very difficult spiritual crisis moment, this eclipse, because this is where you find, like, I don't know, some kind of, let's say if you're extremely religious and you have followed the scripture to the T, and then something gets revealed that completely disillusions you, and you realize that there's corruption in that, or in a lot of hidden truths that are coming to light regarding a religion, and this breaks your mold, you might be completely shattered. But this shattering will give way to a more authentic spiritual connection, rooted in a more deep understanding of truth that is not necessarily from scripture, but from a very deep seated lived experience. It could be also a mystical opening. You know, things like, and an example would be someone that has been super religious all their lives and believe that God is a punishing God or something like that, and suddenly they have a near death experience, and And we hear these all the time, and they meet up with Jesus in their near this experience and see that God is just all this love, and that, and suddenly have this they really meet with the real thing, and then come back, go, oh my gosh, what I have been taught is far from the truth, or something like that. This is kind of that kind of eclipse, what we're leaving behind to embrace something new. Now, if the eclipse falls in your 10th house, that means you are a Gemini rising. And in this is the house of your career, your reputation, what you do in the world, your vocation, what you're here to be as a public figure, or what you do in the world, basically. And we are moving towards a spiritual leadership and service. So what happens here is, if your service to the world and your career have not been aligned to a higher level of service for the collective, but let's say what you do in the world has gives you absolutely no meaning, you just do it because it's what you have to do, and it's not aligned with your true calling for what you're here to do in the world, that career will start losing energy, losing energy, and losing energy, only to gain a much more clear foundation, which is the Virgo at the base, or the fourth house, of who you truly are. Because when you tune into what you need, your own safe ground, and what you're here to do, then you can be a much more stronger force in the public sphere, because your vocation, what you're here to do, is really aligned with who you are, which is the root, who you are. And so a lot of people at this time might be having extreme instability and changes in your career. And Saturn moving through this has been asking, have you been doing something that is of greater service in the collective? Or have you avoided putting yourself out there? Because if you have been avoiding putting yourself out there with your truth, with what you need to be doing, this is the last call to get yourself out there and do something that is of service to the world, that really truly nourishes you and gives you joy and passion. And yes, this is hard work, but this hard work pays off, because that means that you will be recognized as an authority in the world. So if you've been keeping yourself small and disappeared, this is the last call for stepping up and saying, here I am with my gifts, and I'm going to do this. If the eclipse falls in your 11th house, this means you are a Taurus rising, and this is the house of community, friendships, visions, the grander visions for humanity. And what we need to release here is the false belonging. So if you have been involved in groups of people, organizations, even your friendships or your communities that are not really in alignment with who you are, if this is not gelling for you, and your friendships are not really aligned with truth and with who you are, people will start shedding off like there's not tomorrow. Friendships are ending. The organizations you're part of, if they're not rooted in a true sense of service, but they're organizations that are shallow and not really doing anything to better the world, this is where you might be being removed from that, and only to embrace the alignment with the tribe or the people that are truly going to be allies, or communities where your gifts can be truly expressed and given and cherished. So if you're losing your tribe, you're losing your community, you're losing the organizations you work for or you are part of, it's okay to lose that, because they'll be better. There'll be something more aligned. So let them go. And finally, last but not least, if the eclipse is happening in your 12th house, this means that you are in Aries rising. And for the Aries rising, this eclipse is happening in the house of spirituality, the collective unconscious, the karmic, the karmic, all that is. And this is the time for profound endings and soul liberation. So, people like Aries rising people could have had very, very karmic years with Saturn moving through the 12th house, where some fated relationships have entered your life that might not have been the easiest, where there could have been much pain, let's say, even at the level of your own mental health. However, Saturn has been asking of you to not avoid those unconscious currents that wire your behaviors. So if you have taken the time to go deep into your conscious and have deep spiritual practices to uncover all that is hidden in the unconscious mind, all this material could have come to the fore to dissolve. And again, the very difficult karmic lessons with people are here to dissolve for once and for all, to be forgiven. So deep practices of Ho'oponopono are recommended at this time, where you can consciously say, if you don't know what the lessons were or who the people were, this is where you can say, I ask for forgiveness to you, person, to you, person, to you, person, to you, person. And I deeply forgive you, to you. Bring all those people that you feel have been karmically difficult relationships, that you felt like, and then say thank you. Thank you for liberating my soul. Thank you for I liberate your soul. Thank you for we liberate our attachments, our entanglements. Thank you for we have learned the lessons. And this is going to release a lot of those karmic wiring. So again, whether it was something conscious or unconscious, accessing the deep unconscious is the ask of Saturn. It's not avoiding, it's not looking at it and saying, I'm just keeping being the same person, because this will not let you. The karmic entanglements will get even more strained. So time to release all of that, and also any unconscious attachments. This is a really great time for the Aries rising folk to do rebirthing, family constellations, understanding maybe regressions. I would not necessarily prescribe regressions just to find anything, but very specific QHHT sessions where you can go to specific lives or inception points for a pattern or a belief. So if it's done properly with a very good professional, not just to, oh, let's open up all our Akashic records. No, not like that, but just to find really the origins of where a pattern could have been instilled, or some kind of karmic restoration that you're having to do at this time. This gets fully resolved. So in that sense, I would recommend you do something like that, because the 12th house is, if we don't go to it consciously, it just rules. It just rules our life. So that's that. Woo! So last but not least, from our video of this very deep eclipse, again, not a light one because it's in Pisces. So with Saturn retrograde and at the 29th degree, what we need to integrate, everyone, is the last critical test of boundaries, the faith and spiritual maturity before Saturn moves into Aries. We are revisiting the unfinished lessons around sacrifice and around whether or not we have been compassionate or not, and the last lessons around what is an illusion versus what's real. Also, this is the last pass for feeling of the karmic closures with people, places, things. The structures that have been based on illusions will collapse. And this will force something more grounded that can give birth to something more real and more tangible structures that will hold in time for a better humanity. And last but not least, with Saturn, this is preparing the collective birth with this new Saturn cycle, starting in Aries with Neptune. So this is our collective responsibility in pioneering a new way of being spiritual, a new way of being in the world. So this is where we're going to see our pioneering energy. There you have it. This is Saturn. And So this eclipse will act as the floodgate release, blah, which will dissolve the outdated patterns. And so that Saturn moving in this 29th degree in its last pass will be able to disrupt the old and bring in the new for once and for all. In 2026, we'll start seeing the building of the first building blocks of those new foundations on solid new foundations. Our brush will have been completely cleaned of all that remaining paint so we can paint a new picture. There you have it. Very poetic ending. And a reminder for all the Virgos that are having their birthday this month, because you're going to be in these massive eclipses, I would recommend you get a little reading with me or with whoever you want. But I do have a 50% off for solar returns and guidance, transit guidance for Virgos, because it's also my birthday. I want to give this to all Virgos, So 50% off any of the readings that will give you some guidance and solar return, or your birth chart reading. Just hit me up and say, hey, I heard your video. I'd like to take advantage of this offer. I need some guidance. Yay! All right. So I'm going to leave you here, and I will see you in the next video with more eclipses and more to come in September. Like, get ready, get excited. Eclipses are awesome when we're well prepared. Okay? Bye-bye. Love you.